Good morning, everyone. We'll call this meeting to order. Council is conducting this meeting in person and via conference call in accordance with Municipal Government Act, Section 199. Council chambers are open for public attendance in person. However, councillors and members of the public may still join meetings remotely using our current teleconference process. If you have submitted a comment and request, the chair will call on you at the appropriate time. The chair may also ask for comments and concerns from public relating to a particular topic, and at this time, phone lines will be unmuted. If you'd like to speak, please state your name. We ask that only one member of public speak at a time. All persons will be allotted 10 minutes to speak as per procedural bylaw. We ask that as the meeting, if the meeting recesses, any callers hang up and call back in as the meeting reconvenes. This helps with call quality. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded on our website and our social media. To eliminate background noise, please ensure that your phones are muted during the meeting. Everyone has the right to be present at council meetings and council committee meetings. Any attendees that are considered disruptive to the progression of this meeting may be removed at the discretion of the chair as per Municipal Government Act, Section 198. We thank you for your cooperation and understanding. So we do have some, Councillor Reeve actually is calling in remotely, so I'll call a roll call. Reeve Link.
Good morning.
Myself, I'm here. Councillor Eichert.
Present.
Councillor Kester.
Present.
Councillor Bigger.
Here.
Councillor Larson.
Present.
Councillor Priest.
Present.
Thank you. Due to the hybrid nature of today's meeting, we will modify our voting procedure. We will vote by exception. I will call for any councillor who is opposed to the motion to indicate verbally. For any motion with expressed opposition, we will conduct a roll call vote. Is any councillor opposed to that? Seeing none, hearing none, that's good. Okay, with that, we're going to move into the public hearing at 9 o'clock. Oh, sorry.
Agenda.
Yes. We have an agenda in front of us. Is there any additions, deletions, or changes? Okay. Motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
I'll move.
Motion from Councillor Eichert. Any opposition? I'll call the question. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, seeing none, that is carried. We have minutes from September 20th, 2022. Is there any additions or errors or omissions?
I'll move the minutes as presented.
Motions on the floor from Councillor Priest. Is there any opposition? Seeing none, hearing none, that is carried. We'll now move into 2.11 of the public hearing, and I have a spiel I have to say. I move that the process for a Wheatland County meeting as it pertains to scheduled public hearing will be as followed. The public hearing, first reading, which we've already done this, then consideration for further readings of a bylaw whose public hearings have been closed. I further move that the above process will take place in the absence of resolutions to go in and out of council before and after each public hearing. Is there any opposition to that? You're seeing none, hearing that's carried. I'll call the public hearing to order. Welcome, everybody. No real introductions needed. Does any member of the public have an objection to any councillor sitting on council for this public hearing? Can you verify that the notice of the public hearing was circulated in accordance to the Government Act, MGA?
Through the chair, yes, we can.
Thank you very much. Are there any more written submissions?
Through the chair, no, they're not.
So we have everything that's been, council has it all circulated prior?
Correct, everything's in Appendix A.
Thank you very much. So the process will be, anybody that comes to the podium will state your name for the record. You'll have 10 minutes to speak, except for staff, they can talk with lots. So we'll go through the staff, we'll do the presentation. If the applicant's here, they can do a presentation. And then there'll be persons in support of the application, persons with concerns or opposed to application, and then applicant will also be able to address any comments submitted in writing, and then back to for staff final comments, just so everybody's aware of the process. So with that, please proceed.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair and Council. Stephen Coons presenting on behalf of Administration. So Bylaw 2022-10 is public hearing and consideration of second and third readings for an application proposing to redesignate the subject lands from Agricultural General District to Natural Resource Extraction and Processing District. The applicant intends to operate a aggregate extraction and processing operation on the site pending approval. Subject lands are located approximately 3.5 miles southeast of the hamlet of Carsland. The community of Speargrass is also in the area here. The lands are south of Township Road 220, and the highways 24 and 817 are in the area here as well. Looking at the air photo, you can see that the site was previously featured an aggregate operation prior to the year 2000. The approvals for that have since lapsed, so it requires redesignation to the NRE district, and then again, pending approval would require another development permit in order to assess the details for that. So we have looked at the Land Use Bylaw, Municipal Development Plan, and Vulcan County Intermunicipal Development Plan. So I'll go through some of those with details. With the Land Use Bylaw, this features many of the kind of specific requirements. So in that district, in the NRE district, there are special requirements in there for how we assess these type of applications. Some are considered a redesignation, some at development permit. The applicant's kind of done everything that's required for the redesignation and then a little bit for the development permit as well. So many of the documents they submitted, which I'll just briefly list here. So baseline soil and terrain assessment, conceptual stormwater management plan, drainage study, engagement study, the phase 1 environmental site assessment, hydrogeological assessment, traffic impact assessment, and wildlife assessment. So I'll talk about those a little bit in detail here as we go along. But again, some of those are required at development permits, so further updates may be required for those. So in terms of the site plan, and this is just going through page 14 of the Land Use Bylaw requirements, if you want to follow along. So the applicant has provided a site plan with some phasing as well as some setback areas. Of note with this, they've indicated at the bottom here, it's 30.48 meters from the bank. The requirement in the Land Use Bylaw is actually from the top of bank. So they can relax that at development permit stage. What it would require is a geotechnical report. Whatever the geotechnical report says is an appropriate distance, they can relax to that, obviously pending Municipal Planning Commission approval. For the traffic impact assessment, generally there were no concerns. It indicated that there would be an additional 20 to 40 vehicle trips per day, which is not expected to trigger any upgrades to the transportation network. One major kind of update that would be required at the development permit stage, the TIA doesn't reflect the proposed reconfiguration of highways 817 and 24. So there are further detailed drawings in Appendix A from Alberta Transportation, but this is generally the idea. So Township Road 220 is down in this area. The subject lands are off here to the east. So currently it accesses Highway 24 in this location and Highway 817 in this location. So with this reconfiguration, essentially the highways would intersect here where the green circle is instead of here. And then traffic from the development would actually be redirected along this yellow road to Township Route 221 and then up to there. So that kind of moves it further away from this Speargrass community. But again, that will need to be, again, pending approval, obviously, updated in the TIA at the development permit stage. In terms of noise mitigation, berming, screening, the lands are located actually quite far from any existing dwellings. I think the closest one is about a mile away, which is about here. There is some vegetation on site which does provide some screening. And again, the initial phase will be further away, so it'll kind of move north towards the road as it is. And further details will be provided at development permit stage for that. Lighting must be in accordance with the dark sky considerations. That's obviously a development permit consideration as well, but that can be permitted or conditioned at that time. Environmental, so this is located obviously in close proximity to the Bow River, so that triggered some additional requirements here in the Land Use Bylaw. So you can see the Bow just to the south here. So those are some of those items. Phase 1 environmental site assessment is required regardless, and actually that noted because of the previous aggregate operation, there is potential for contamination. So we recommended a phase 2. But the additional requirements or technical studies that were provided are the base soil and terrain assessment and the wildlife assessment. And there are generally no concerns with those. Land use bylaw also addresses adjacent residential development. So we can see from the map here, essentially no dwellings, or if any dwellings are within 650 feet, which is 200 meters approximately, then these wouldn't be supported. So you can see here there's obviously no dwellings in that area, and indeed the closest one is approximately a mile away. Lastly, community consultations. So prior to actually submitting an application, the applicant is required to do their own community consultation. They have done this and provided an engagement summary. This is included in the report under attachment B. So in terms of the municipal development plan, which has some kind of broader policy implications. Aggregate extraction is considered under section 3.8, natural resource development. Primary objective is to ensure that these type of applications are managed safely and effectively, and that extraction activities are respectful of surrounding land uses. That's obviously why we have requirements like, the distance from residences, that type of thing. There are some other specific requirements concerning development in close proximity to environmentally sensitive areas such as the river. Addressed that previously under the land use bylaw. They provided some additional documentation that would address that. And again, if they are looking to relax that setback from the top of bank, an additional report, the geotechnical report, would be required at that time as well. So lastly, the Vulcan County Intermunicipal Development Plan really just reflects the requirements of both of these previous documents. The IDP in general looks to foster an interjurisdictional approach to address planning issues on lands that connect these municipalities. So obviously it is across the river, but it still is, obviously in close proximity. So we did engage with Vulcan County and a number of their residents. And generally, the IDP looks to consider the effects of visual intrusion, dust, noise, traffic, essentially all the same things that the land use bylaw and MDP require us to look at. So there are no concerns from Vulcan County and in terms of compliance with the IDP. So that concludes my presentation. I believe the applicant has one as well, but we are recommending approval here, resolutions 1 and 2, and I'll be happy to take any questions should you have any. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions from council to staff about what was presented? We can ask again after. No questions? So we have the applicant here, I guess, to do a presentation. Please come forward, state your name, and you have a 10-minute window.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Valerie Hoff. I am the land manager with Lehigh Hanson Materials, here to provide some information about our application. I do also have here with me our environment manager, Nicole Thomas, and our area manager for operations, Lee Terrace. So I'll just go over the current conditions, proposed operations, the engagement and what we heard, mitigation measures, and time for questions and discussion. And I'll try not to repeat too much of what Stefan has shared with you already. So the site is located in the southwest region of the county, close to Carseland. As Stefan mentioned, the site is previously disturbed. We were active in this area in the 1980s and 90s, and then the site became dormant. So we're looking to come back into the area, remove the last of the gravel, and then reclaim the site for the next land use. The proposed operations would include extraction, processing, storage, and shipping over 128 acres of the property, which is it's a little hard to see in that image, but it's the orange boundary. The processing equipment would be portable. Phasing would progress generally from the southeast towards the northwest. As mining progresses, we would be progressively reclaiming behind us. Anticipated traffic would be around 5 to 6 trucks per day, with peak operations for project-specific times maybe up to 40 trucks per day. And typical hours would be expected to be 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. 164 landowners were contacted for our engagement. As you can see, most of the feedback we received was from the community of Speargrass. We did hear from a couple of the neighbors on the haul route and south of the project. Primarily, the concerns were relating to noise, dust, and traffic. So as far as dust, we're proposing to reduce the speed in front of the residences along Township Road 220. We had the opportunity to meet with one of the landowners along that haul route and work with them on what they would be okay with. Using a water truck along the haul route as necessary, limiting the operations in high wind events, and progressively reclaiming will also help to reduce the dust coming from the site. As far as noise, we'll comply with operating hours as determined by Wheatland County during the development permit. I would note that we did reduce our proposed operating hours to prohibit crushing overnight because that was one of the requests that came from the residents south of the river. Topsoil and overburden will be stockpiled to assist with the noise attenuation, as Stefan had pointed out in our one map, and using low-frequency backup alarms. For traffic and trucking, improvements to Highway 817 and Highway 24 are underway. This is anticipated to provide an alternative route for commercial traffic that should help keep our truck traffic separate from the residents in the area. As mentioned in the dust control, reducing speed along that strip of the haul road that's gravel. And then our ASGA, we're members of the ASGA, and through that there's the truck registry, so if anybody does have any issues with trucking, there's always a number posted on each of those trucks, and that gets reported back to us through the ASGA. For the Bow River, AEP is concurrently reviewing the code of practice application. Our hope is that that would be in place if we get approval today before coming for the development permit, so we have all the feedback from AEP in advance of that final approval from council. They were okay with the setback we proposed from the Bow River, but as Stefan mentioned, there may be some geotechnical requirements in the development permit process. Part of what AEP has requested is specific erosion control measures for the proximity to the bank, which we would include. And then no mining within 30 meters of the bank of the river, as shown. And that concludes my presentation. As mentioned, myself, Valerie Hoff, Nicole Thomas, and Lee Terres, if anybody has questions for us.
Thank you for the presentation. Is there any questions from council to President?
I have a question. I don't know what it's called, but when some extractions and gravel pits, they bury the crushing and have quite a big berm so that it eliminates some of the sound. Is that kind of the operation that you're thinking of too?
I'm not quite sure what you mean by that.
Lower the equipment?
Oh, yes. Do you want to speak to that?
I don't know what it's called, and I don't know much about
If you're
gravel.
responding, please come forward. Yeah. And state your name and everything, please.
Yeah, Lee Terrace, Area Manager for Southern Alberta Aggregates for Lehigh Hansen. So typically during operations, when you strip part of the area that you're going to access, you create a berm around that area so that you can, it helps with the noise attenuation and stuff like that. So
And how high is that berm?
it varies depending on the amount of overburden that's available. It's 2 to 3 meters usually. In this location too, with the trees and different things like that, we are able to use some of that as a noise attenuation as well. So,
Okay, can that be adjusted? Can that be brought higher through from others, places for bringing in other dirt from somewhere else to actually make it higher?
there can be,
Yeah.
but sometimes making it higher doesn't always solve the problem either. There's usually an optimal height because sound travels in waves, and depending on the height, that can affect it as well. So there's usually a little bit of information that needs to be done to figure out what that optimal height is for the noise of the equipment, depending on what it's emitting.
Okay. That was, I think, my only question. Oh, the backup alarms. Are they, you said they're lower, but isn't there something where the people wouldn't even hear that's only for the operator?
Yeah, so there is actually, it's, for a lack of a better technical term, it's like a duck squawk. So it's more of a squawk than the beep. And that duck squawk is able to be heard right adjacent to the equipment, but that noise doesn't travel as far. So you don't get that annoying noise further down within a mile. You will not be able to hear the duck squawk. Backup alarms, which is what we're using on our equipment.
And the reclamation on the areas that you've already extracted from, has that been done?
Valerie Huff speaking again. Parts of the area that we've already reclaimed, the intention is actually to come back in and mine a little bit lower than we had last time we were there to recover more of the material. So no, that reclamation isn't complete, but our plan would be come in, take out the last of it, and then reclaim behind ourselves.
And you reclaim as you're working north, like as you're going?
That's correct.
Okay.
And just for council's reference, we do also have 2 sites adjacent that we had historically mined that are both fully reclaimed. So this site would be reclaimed to similar land use.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions from council?
I had the same question about the alarms. I live near a gravel pit, and that's what I hear, the backup alarms. I hear a little bit of rumbling from gravel crushing, but not too much. But it's that, yeah, that's always my worry about it. Yeah.
For myself with the alarms too, because I have worked in a gravel pit before, but I understand the trucks, the equipment on site will have the reductions, but the equipment that comes in site, like if you have hire a contractor to haul so many yards of gravel, they may come in and use their own vehicles, and they'll have like the highway style that are, so if you can minimize or eliminate them backing up on site would greatly help.
I think that's certainly something that we could account for. All of our sites, we have a vehicle, we call it a vehicle segregation policy, and within that internal planning document, I think that's probably achievable.
Thank you. No further questions? Thank you for the presentation. Do we have any persons present or online that are in support of the application? In support? Okay. We'll come to opposition here. I'll ask again, do we have any persons present or online that are in support of the application? For a third time, I'll ask, is there any persons present or online, on the line, in support of the application? Okay, we'll move forward to persons present or online with concerns or opposed to the application. You have to come to the podium, state your name. You have 10 minutes to address council, and we will move forward. Good morning.
Morning. Bill Swagger. It appears that you people have done a very good job on a lot of this, and I have no axe to grind at that. I live in Speargrass, and we generally have a feeling there that live and let live. Progress is important, etc. And oftentimes you don't realize, with all the beautiful stuff that you've done here, what the real effect is to little people. So I'm one of the little people. I'll probably be moving out of Speargrass because I can't afford to live there. Part of this is internal things and various other things that are going on, but part of it is also when I looked at how much money has gone out on my vehicles in the last year and a half. About a year ago, I've lived here for almost 4 years. First couple of years, everything was okay, normal. I've been in this county, by the way, for 40 some odd years, including on a farm with gravel, running 4 trucks, 5 cars, etc. In that time period from 1982, we probably put on 8 million kilometers. In that time period, we replaced approximately 5.5 to 6 windows on our vehicles and had 2 claims that were, big rock or something or hit an animal. Okay. We moved to Speargrass. In the last year and a half, it has changed so that I go to see a window doctor at Walmart to get my windows fixed, generally once a month on each car. And they will repair one window, and I usually come out of there, and you don't put on insurance because your insurance goes up. It's considered to be a claim. It's a collision, okay? So you don't do that. So you just pay out of cash and say, well, this is life, they've got a job to do. They're professionals, and they seem to be, by the way. You look at these gravel trucks, and they have coverings on them and the whole bit. I still get all of this on my window. So I go get it fixed until such time as the window doctor looks at this and says, your window looks like a checkerboard. I'm not allowed to do anything more with it. You need to get a new window. So instead of only having $100 per vehicle per month, then you also have to replace a window. On the newer vehicles, e.g. on the Palisade that was brand new that I've gotten rid of, we only owned it for 8 months because I can't afford to keep it anymore. Because the last straw was, the window went again. And because it's new, the insurance people expect you to get a proper factory window at $1,500. And of course, there was the rock. Well, the rock just happened to be on the road outside of Cars Land, and it was a big rock. And I missed it. But unfortunately went under the car and it did damage. Took out all the plastic, etc. So I'm looking at this and say, well, I don't want this on insurance because it's 2 claims against me. So I guess I'll pay out of cash. Well, I got estimates on the damage underneath the car, which I had stopped, by the way, and etc. It was somewhere between $4,000 and $6,000 on a windshield for about $1,500. And to be quite honest, I looked at my bank account and said, I'm sorry, I can't afford to keep this vehicle anymore. Went to the dealer and said, what will you give me for this vehicle? It's only 8 months old. Well, you're going to take a hit off of this, you realize, because you drove it off the lot. Yeah, I did. Got rid of it. Ended up looking for vehicles that I didn't have to put collision on, and I don't put glass on them, and that were cheap because it has to fit into my budget now. Okay. Why? Because all of the windows that we've replaced and a truck tire tread from one of these 18-wheelers, I thought it was going to kill us. It was right about here, hit the brakes, and I managed to get it so that it didn't hit here, it hit the front. All the plastic went. Everybody was okay, didn't cause an accident, etc. Oh, did you get a picture of the thing coming, and can you prove who it was, and can you basically make a claim and have them pay for it? No, they didn't stop. And I was busy picking up the pieces of my car. This has been the scenario around Cars Land and around, in particular, Speargrass for the last year and some days. My current budget says that I am about a month and a half ago when I decided I had to sell all my new vehicles and get something that I didn't care about that I could write off. That occurred about 6 weeks ago. I got rid of both of the new vehicles. Took a loss on that because we had, rock chips, broken windows, and plastic. Okay. So you take a huge hit on this. So a $60,000 car now is worth, good market for selling them, but we're only going to give you $38,000 for it. Well, do the math. That's been the scenario around Speargrass for a long time. To be, when there's neighbors, talk to one neighbor. Talk to the police, by the way. The police are very sympathetic. They say, that's horrible. We feel badly for you. They do. What can we do? There's nothing we can do. Okay. Talk to your insurance people. Can we do a class action suit or something? And something? Well, we're not really interested in this. It's a $1,500 window. That's 2 phone calls to our lawyer. Like, no, pay for it. Okay. So my neighbor turns around and says, I said, well, don't you have this problem too? He says, oh yeah, I said, but I get around it in certain ways. First of all, I got a great big crack on my RV, and it's the window's worth $2,500. I'm just not going to replace it till I have to, and I'll take it off on the sale. I said, well, what about your other ones? He says, well, both my trucks, I've replaced the window in the last year. He said, I had the company pay for it. And my car, he says, I couldn't do that, but he said, you know, they were out about $4,000 for windows because one was in the side window. He says, and I don't worry too much about this because he says, we decided we don't like the commotion here and what's going on, so we just basically have left. So even though we own a place in Speargrass, you'll notice in the summertime that we're only here 1 out of 5 days. We're out camping, we're out other places, but we're not here, so we don't have to put up with this. Okay? I said, well, what about the winter? He says, oh, we're going to the U.S. in the wintertime, so I don't have to worry about that either. He says, if it's still this bad when I get back, we'll probably just sell the house. How many houses have been sold in Speargrass? A lot of them. How many are because of this? Probably very few that this is the only reason. But Speargrass is a wonderful little jewel. And you look at this and say, well, okay, how many people should be moving out of Speargrass? There's around 200 houses, as I sort of, in a year. And probably I would say 10% of these people would be moving for all sorts of reasons. I'll bet you there's at least 50 homes that have changed hands in the last year. You start talking to some of these people and you find out, well, was this a deciding factor? No, we just pay that out of pocket. Everybody pays out of pocket. We just pay for our windows. So I ended up with 2 brand new vehicles, which are used vehicles, which I could get about 4 weeks ago. It took less than a week on the Santa Fe to end up with a busted front window where they would not fix it because it was too big. And so we took it in, found a place in Calgary and got it, came back, wonderful new window. 2 days later, went by Okotos, came back by the bridge. Oh, there's a gravel truck coming over the bridge. It's on the other side. Well, yeah, huge rock like this, came like this, took out the sunroof. Oh, $1,500. So we had to get that fixed. Well, there was only one in Canada, so we could do it right now, but that would take 10 days to get it fixed. It now has been fixed as of last Wednesday. So now we have windows again. Oh, but my truck, the windows were good, they aren't anymore. I've had that actually 5 weeks now. That's a typical thing that's happening. And nobody's at fault. I realize you guys aren't, and I don't think you can do anything. But you need to know that these people who are making millions and have done this wonderful job on this gravel pit, okay, there are some casualties here. And we don't know what the heck to do about it.
I understand you have about 30 seconds left, just so you know. Yeah.
Thank you.
I appreciate
Do whatever
it.
you can.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Is there anybody else present or on the line that would like to speak in opposition to the application? Please come forward, state your name. Thank you very much, sir.
Good morning, Doug Coots. I'm one of the 2 people that live on the south side of the river. Arguably, I think I'm probably closer than a mile. I guess as the crow flies. The pit, I guess, adjacent to the one that's going to be developed, we hear that quite often as well. Just wanted to piggyback onto what Bill had commented on regarding vehicle windows and things like that. Over the years, guaranteed we're replacing a window, a windshield, a sunroof on both our vehicles once a year. And huge cost to us with no benefit, obviously, to having these trucks and equipment on our roadways. A little bit about what Bill talked about was all part of sustainable communities or livable communities. And I think that's very important for those of us that have been there. Those of us who have skin in the game, we've been there since 95, so 27 years. And we've seen every year exponential growth in truck traffic. It's become one of the major transportation corridors. We have campers and holidayers going on that route. And we're surrounded by gravel pits. I don't know of another area that's got this choke point of heavy industrialized area within a residential farmland area. And arguably, I wonder what the saturation point would be, or who makes that determination. Would it be Transportation Minister of Alberta? Would they be doing an assessment of that? Have any assessments been done to try to determine whether or not we've reached a level where a two-lane highway can support that amount of traffic? So yeah, we've got some major concerns. Constant noise, the backing up, the beeping, and of course, you know what, you've got an area here that's been previously mined and it's in pretty rough shape probably by the looks of it, and needs to be mined again and redeveloped. We understand that, and I agree with Bill, right, that you've got to live within this as part of your community. But my question is, at what cost, right? And so I guess basically it's up to you folks to determine what you want as far as a community, and is it going to be sustainable? Now, if you have people moving out of the area and stuff like that, I think it's irresponsible and short-sighted to continue on a road that we're going. I think it's important to plan for the future and see what that development looks like. We've got a seniors development, I believe, that's on your side of the border there, that's fairly close to the pit as well, so they're going to be impacted by it. I think it's more important that you have livable communities. We've got this, as Bill suggested, this jewel of an area. We love living in this area, but very frustrated. I guess I apologize. I'm a little bit disjointed in my commentary here. I made some notes, and just give me a few moments to go through it. The wear and tear on the existing infrastructure, the roadways, the highway gets grooved out, of course, with the heavy equipment and trucks. And none of this is replaced in a timely fashion, of course, so it creates hydroplaning. We talked about, the issues of broken glass and broken windows and things like that. We were just going on vacation this year. Another occurrence, just as we're leaving, a rock by the size of probably a golf ball hit our windshield and shattered glass on the inside. So you can imagine going down the road 100K, and you've got glass shards flying at you. So that's another issue, is the safety issue of all these trucks on the road. You've got school buses going through there, so it's a major connection corridor to go to Carsland or to Strathmore. And so, is safety a concern? I'm not sure. For me, it would be. So I guess moving forward, I guess we need to determine what we want out of our communities, and do we just continue to exacerbate this problem? Do we continue to make this a choke point for this industrialized aggregate mining in this area? Is that the vision that people want to see of the future? You create this pristine riverfront area. When I cross the river, I look to my right and I look down the river west of the bridge, and I see the government campground. I see a nice flowing river. I see the landscaped community of Speargrass. I look to the left and I see a lunar landscape. That whole North Ridge in your quadrant is a lunar landscape of aggregate mining. And how is that insightful for the development of the future? How is that sustainable? How is that allowing people to encouraging people to move into the neighborhood when they see that sort of activity? When you look at sustainable communities, you're looking at, just bear with me for a minute. You're looking at livable communities that are safe, right? That provide all the activities, recreational. And I can't for the life of me think of one positive reason why we would allow this. What are the benefits to the community that this development has for the community? And I'm talking to the community of that area, not the community of Strathmore or Wheatland. What's the benefit? You guys get the benefit of extra tax, right? Does that extra tax dollars from that realignment of that area, do those extra tax dollars go back into that community that are greatly impacted by it? No. They go into the giant coffers and are spent willy-nilly, right? We know how that works. So the benefit to the community out there is no benefit. I don't know if anybody can stand. Can anybody tell me what value is added to the community with this development? And to me, that's particularly important, right? Because we are the community. That is a community. Even though I don't live in the county, I'm still part of that community. I still add to the county of Wheatland. We do our shopping here in Strathmore. Our kids went to school here in Strathmore, in Carsland. So yeah, I think it's particularly important that we create an environment that is sustainable so that we can continue, these communities continue and grow. That's the value. The value isn't in these aggregate mining operations because they're here for 10 years. I assume that's the length of this contract, right? Anybody? Is it 10 years?
Yeah, a little bit more, I think.
Or more. So now I've lived for 25 years with that noise and racket of gravel and dust and damage to my vehicles and everything else, and lowering of my property values. So now I've got another over 10 years of another aggregate mining operation that's right next door to me. Yeah, I'm particularly disappointed about that, but I'm not necessarily just disappointed for me, I'm disappointed for all the other people as well that aren't here today to share and voice my concerns. I'm disappointed in the apathy of people. I'm disappointed in the lack of vision in our communities. I'm disappointed with the fact that in the county of Wheatland or the county of Vulcan, we think that on the perimeter peripheral areas that we can just go willy-nilly where the population isn't as much as say other areas are concentrated. How is this any different than BFI? Anybody here involved in the BFI operations that wanted to move into Wheatland? Anybody? I'm asking council, was anybody involved back then with BFI? And we fought that.
We weren't here.
Yeah, the vast majority.
Nobody was here.
You have about 15 seconds left, sir.
So I'm just saying that how is this any different, right? BFI, of course, was in your face and all the traffic commuting to Calgary and stuff like that. All these gravel pits are on the periphery. None of you people go that way. How many on council are directly impacted other than to say maybe 2 people that I know of? How many people have lived with this type of situation?
Chair Clausen, just a point from administration, the 10-minute allotment is up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Is there anybody else would like to speak in opposition? Present or on the line? I'll ask a second time. Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted on record.
Sure. Come forward. Please state your name.
My name's Carol Coots, and I just really strongly agree with everything my husband said. And I guess also I resent my tranquility on my property being ruined by crushers, backing up beepers, and also the safety. I cringe every time I go by a gravel truck now from the amount of times that glass has been, like when we were leaving this vacation, that it's actually sprayed on you and that you have to stop your vehicle, try and clean out the glass. And they say get a 3 number. You're supposed to turn around and chase the gravel truck down. Like, how does that happen? And we have done that. We did that when the glass was sprayed on our children. And do you think the company did anything? You know, one time I got my sunroof and my windshield out. So how is that safe? I just don't think we need another gravel pit in the area. And especially the choke point of, I don't think our roads can sustain that. You've got, like Doug said, school buses. There either has to be a vast improvement on the safety of and it's going the opposite way of these gravel trucks, that stuff comes off their trucks and smashes your windows. Anyways, thank you.
Very much. You may feel that we don't feel your pain or understanding, but we understand how you feel. So it's development's also always personal. So any further people that want to present in opposition? I believe that's 3 times, correct? Third and final?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. If the applicant would like to have an opportunity to address any of the comments that were presented today, now is your time.
Once again, Valerie Hoff. First of all, I'm really sorry to hear that this has been your experience in the area, and we certainly hope, as a big corporation, we take accountability and being a good neighbor really seriously, and we absolutely want to be responsible operators in this area. I do think that the highway realignment is going to go far as separating the traffic and the issues with the residents and the truck traffic. Lastly, this is always a bit of a tough point for us. We don't choose where the gravel is, so it's difficult to say, we can just go over here or go over there. We absolutely want to do our best to be good neighbors here, and would work with you guys to make sure that we're not adding to the impact that you guys have experienced.
Yeah, go ahead. Hang on.
Got a question for you. All companies have safety manuals, safety procedures. I'm just curious as to your company, would you have a safety person on site that would regularly inspect the trucks, even the contractor trucks, make sure their tarps are all in one piece, they're not ripped, shattered? The gravel is not accumulating on the frames and on the hitch points and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, typically we have, Lee Terrace addressing. We typically have cameras at our scaling points, so we're able to monitor debris on the back of trailers and things like that. The other thing that I would be willing to do is to do a bit of a community engagement and a seminar on how to deal with the truck traffic and the gravel haulers. We are a very responsible operator. I was also responsible for an operation in northern Alberta that operated a lot of remote pits. Our relationship with the neighbors is very important. We can't extract the gravel without a good relationship with the neighbors. Sometimes some of the things that, when you're putting in a pump or something like that, it's very important on how you situate the muffler or exhaust of that, because you can be annoying to the neighbors. You can put on different pieces of equipment that'll make it quieter. And, I think that's one of the things that we've prided ourselves as a company, is that we listen to the neighbors and we try to work with them to make it better. Getting permits for gravel extraction is getting harder and harder, and it's important that we make the community happy in what we're doing. And coming back to the point about the trucking, there are things we can do. Nowadays, most of the trucks have telematics on them. We can find out what truck is where in our operation and find out what times and place. So if something like that happens, you phone the ASGA. They usually direct you to the operator that operated that truck, and we can find out exactly in time where that truck was at that time. So you can't just say, no, it wasn't our problem. If something like that happens, we'll own that. We'll make sure that we look after your windshields, and we did that a number of times in the north. I think it's a system we have to clean up a little bit in the south, but in northern Alberta, there's a very sound process. And, I'd be willing to meet with the community and give them that information so that they know how to deal with it and handle those kind of situations. Again, our company is very responsible. If there's complaints that come in, we want to make sure that that complaint is addressed and rectified so that there's a record of how we act in the community as well. So, your complaints don't just fall on deaf ears. We want to work with you guys to make it a good place to live and a sustainable place for you guys to live as well.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
What is ASGA?
It's the Alberta Sand and Gravel Association.
There's a central registry. It has a number on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of people didn't know what that was.
Yeah, 100%. If we were to be successful in opening up operation in there, I'd have no problem with, kind of following that process. Because the other thing it does, it holds the other gravel producers accountable as well. And I think that's a big part of the issue here too, is that, there's responsible operations and there's irresponsible operations, and we want to be part of the responsible ones.
And so every gravel
truck in Alberta is supposed to have an ASG
has that?
number. Correct. Yeah.
Right?
So you're telling me if I'm driving down the highway there and I hit the bridge there at the 24 and a car, whatever, say a gravel truck passes me and I get a broken windshield, all I would have to do is phone this ASG number and tell them what time, what place, and they'll look after the rest. I don't have to go chase down a gravel truck.
You should not have to go chase down a gravel truck. They have a registry of all the operators that are in the system, and they know what operators are being contracted to what companies, and then we usually typically deal with the company that is involved.
Okay, and as far as larger rocks on the road that's fallen off the truck, it's definitely hasn't come from a car, it's from the gravel operations. Do you regularly screen for rocks, or not screen? When your drivers are out, would they actually stop and remove rocks from the highway or record it or get something?
Well, depending on the size of rock, most of the time in our operation, the material that we're shipping won't have rocks this size. Like a 3 or a 6-inch rock shouldn't be falling off any of our trucks. That's basically a pit run situation. We're not we don't typically sell pit run. We want to sell finished goods. So you're looking at, 1-inch crushed gravel and stuff like that, not large size rocks. So, but 100%, like if we're, with the cameras, we can monitor what debris is on the trailers. The truck drivers are responsible for making sure that those are clean before they leave the pit, and we can monitor that via the cameras. And then we typically have water trucks and things like that to help mitigate with some of the dust and things like that. So those are things that we can try to control. There's the size of rocks on the road. You can bring a grader in and push them off to the side and things like that.
You're saying the trucks are swept off, or
The tailgates of the trucks, any of the tongues of the trucks, things like that are supposed to be cleaned off before they leave our premises, 100%. And we're operating in the city of Calgary, and we do not have that issue. We bring in sweepers to clean up our area before the gravel trucks get onto the major roadways and stuff like that. So that's something we are responsible for.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Back to staff. Any final comments from staff?
Through the chair, no.
Thank you very much. Thank you for everybody present and attending the hearing and making your submissions. I'll make the motion to close the public hearing. And we'll go back into council, consider further readings. Do I need a motion to close the public hearing? Okay, I'll make the motion to close this public hearing. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, seeing none, that's carried. We'll move back to council agenda. And we're back to 2.11, bylaw 2022-10, land redesignation. Is there anything further that questions, concerns that we have? Or is there any further presentation? Okay. I know a lot of the concerns that people had here, there's a lot of things that can be addressed in the development permit stage, just for people are aware of it. Dust control, things like that are all addressed there. The majority of those concerns will be addressed there.
With the community consultation or engagement part of it, where they maybe would hold a session to maybe inform, would that be part of a development permit application condition?
Through the chair, so the engagement was done prior to this. It would be circulated essentially to the neighbors at the development permit stage. Anybody who's an impacted party could then appeal it. So that would be their process, and then they could appeal to
I was just thinking
the relevant ward.
The operations manager was talking about how he could have, further engagement later on to inform residents of how they can proceed with damages and things like that. And I wondered if that was a condition that we could impose on.
Through the chair, so there's no conditions with the land use redesignation. So once that happens, the land use is what it is. You could strongly suggest to them that would be something that MPC would be considering when they consider the development permit, and then the applicant could take that into consideration as part of their application.
Gotcha.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I would think that as a community, all the gravel pits should get together and explain and inform all the residents and have like an open session, town hall. I think that's would be important. I just want to say that come development permit, I know this isn't the time, but I just want to know that I do think that we need to review the road past Township 212, I think. That's going to need to be, I think it needs to be more than just watered. That one resident there, that's going to be, there needs to be pavement or some kind of better dust control for that resident, for sure. I do want to answer some of the questions that were brought up. There is, just for information, there is it's 40 cents per ton that comes to the community from gravel pits. That is for the community to use for recreation or.
Sorry, correction. I think it's 30 right now.
Oh, it's 30?
Yeah.
Okay. And what was my other? Some other issues were that we'll probably be bringing up is the berms for noise at the development permit. If I would want those things to be addressed if this goes to the development permit. And I know the traffic, what we've been bearing with before the alignment, before 817 and 24 has been outrageous. The gravel trucks and the traffic on that highway's been, for the past years, has been unbearable at times. And with this new alignment, I'm very happy that that's going through and that the province has decided that that's important. And I've started with that. It's going to make a big difference for our community. The community that is developed, the seniors development, had no concerns with his gravel pits. So just to let the community know that. That was all my comments.
Thank you. I don't believe we have the power to, with this application at permit stages, so you're clear, that we can't have the other existing gravel pits. We have no power to make them do that.
Oh,
But
no,
this,
no, it
I
would be
believe
a-
this will set a standard with the new operations.
community thing. I do.
Because there's some big players down there too, so. So if there's definitely issues, unless there's another way we can get that at some point in the future, we could try, but.
It's a hard balance between progress and, I mean, as we all know as councillors, we have to keep our taxes as low as we can, so you can't. Progress is there, and I understand that, I mean, we didn't pick that the gravel pits were beside us. They're not just everywhere. I mean, Speargrass, I don't think would even be there if it was a gravel pit at one time. The safety issues is one of my big concerns too.
Councillor Castro, you have something to say?
Kind of related, but it's not. This may be help. Years ago, the feedlots, we had all kinds of issues with this feedlot, that feedlot. Some feedlots never heard from. They were very good. Called all the feedlots in, I don't know how many times, 3 or 4 times, I'm meeting with them all. And, a lot of the issues went away. But the good feedlots put pressure on the other feedlots, and it made a big difference. So maybe the same process could happen down there. You get everybody into this room, tell them the concerns, tell them how unhappy everybody is. If anything we can do, road bans, anything, we can make life a little bit difficult for them too, even after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that would be a consideration too, that we could have a meeting with them all. And, any heads sometimes comes up with a better solution.
Thank you. We have possible second reading, depending what council's wishes are. For me, aggregate is basically the building block of everything that we do. It's an unfortunate, it's a necessary evil. I know the pressures will probably get greater in the future because of, there's been some stuff turned down around Calgary. But it is, and you have to have, anything you do, first thing you have is aggregate. Otherwise, you can't drive on roads, you can't build concrete, you can't do anything. So and crushing's part of it. It doesn't all come at the right size. It has to be crushed down. Some of the concerns here from trucks that never got mentioned, I'd like to mention, is the Department of Highways, the corrections, DOT guys. They can show up at any time and stop every single truck on that road and weigh them and go through them with a fine-tooth comb. The truck drivers have the only business that you can be safety audited at any time and be put out of service at any time. You have no warning they're coming. So it's, I defend truck drivers a little bit because I've done it for years, and there is bad players out there. Absolutely, there's a lot of good ones. It's a really hard business to be in to make a living. It's very cutthroat. So, especially in the gravel operations, but. Sorry, go ahead. Didn't see you.
I wasn't really going to wade into this, but I think I will. I've lived in this county my whole life. I remember when this road out here was not paved. Until just recently, the person that sat in this seat before me got a road paved out near us. We were 20 miles from the nearest paved road. This county cannot exist without aggregate. I understand your problems. I go through a windshield every year. That's been my life. That's part of living in the country. This county cannot exist without aggregate. I totally agree with what Scott's saying. Yes, there's some bad actors out there, but this is part of living in the country. I'm sorry.
Council's wishes.
I'll move second reading of bylaw 2022-10.
Thank you. Any questions? Discussion? If not, I'll call the question. Is there any opposition? Seeing none, hearing none, that is carries. We have another possible resolution. Go ahead.
Just a minute. I will move that council move third reading of bylaw 2022-10, this being a bylaw for the purpose, I'm reading the right one, aren't I? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just saw a funny look. Of amending land use bylaw number 2016-01 to redesignate Block 1, Plan 8711027 within the east half of 342125 west of the 4th Meridian from Agricultural General District to Natural Resource Extraction Processing District as shown on the attached Schedule A forming part of this bylaw.
Thank you very much. Any questions or discussion before I call the question? If not, I'll call the question. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, seeing none, that is carried. Thank you very much. There still will be a development permit with this application coming forward to MPC is what I heard. So there would be a lot of issues that we've heard that we will try to address. Thank you very much. Yes, we'll have a request for, let's do a 10-minute break. Hopefully the washrooms are back online.
They're back now. Yeah.
Yes, sorry, I forgot to address at the start. We did not intentionally have the washrooms out of service. We had a water problem this morning.
Oh, dear.
Mute off.
We're all good? Council's back in session. We're going to move on to 2.12. Bylaw 2022-18 land redesignation ag to HRG. First reading. Are ready, sir. Please present. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Council. Stefan Kuntz presenting on behalf of Administration. Bylaw 2022-18 is first reading for an application proposing to redesignate the portion of the subject lands from Agriculture General to Hamlet Residential General. So lands are located within the hamlet of Ardnode. This is approximately 5 miles north of the town of Strathmore. And the report says it's 7.5 miles southwest of the intersection, but it's actually immediately southwest of the intersection of Township Road 253A and Range Road 253. So the purpose of the application, so the stippled area here on the map is, so it's 8.33 acres in size. That's the portion that's intended to be redesignated to Hamlet Residential. So this ag remainder parcel, that's obviously Agriculture General. These two portions here, that's under one lot currently. But as you can see, it's separated here by the WID owned lands that's for Serviceberry Creek. So what the applicant is intending to do is essentially make this one more kind of contiguous unit. So essentially redesignating these lands to the same as these ones, and then that will facilitate a boundary adjustment where the dotted line is here. So that's been kind of a component of this. If approved, then that would be considered through MPC later on. So it looks a little bit different here. Obviously, you can see kind of why he's looking to do this. Ultimately, sell these lands and then have this as one contiguous area. So we circulated to WID, so they are aware. Obviously, not the creek changes a little bit, so these don't exactly reflect the actual area. So they are open to doing another boundary adjustment with these areas in order to actually get those to the applicant if they're not needed. The only potential issue with the Hamlet Residential District, obviously it has a smaller lot size, so it could be subdivided further. We'll just note though that the number of parcels in the quarter section, it's over the 5, so it would require an area structure plan and servicing, obviously. So he can submit a subdivision application to do that, but it would require, as mentioned, the ASP and servicing as well. So that concludes my presentation. We are obviously recommending that Council move first reading and that the hearing be scheduled for October 18th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions on the presentation? I have one. You already answered one about the sections, parcels per quarter. They also, with how close it is to the feedlot, is there Are they in the notification zone for the high-intensity lot? I thought there was a zone around them that they had to approve.
For confined feeding operations?
Yes. Wasn't it a mile boundary or something?
It was the other way. Once the feedlot's there, you can apply to move in the thing. But the feedlot has to be outside of the mile before they can be allowed to build one. But once it's already there, you can apply to move there if you want.
Okay.
There's not a restriction that way.
That's correct. And the MDP, as far as I can remember, doesn't have any restrictions for development next to those. But then that could obviously limit the potential expansion of the CFO. So we don't like to see that, but this is, I believe it's outside the area.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Any further questions from anyone?
I'll move that council, council move first reading of bylaw 2022-18. This being a bylaw for the purpose of amending land use bylaw number 2016-01 to redesignate plus or minus 3.37 hectares within the portion of Southeast 212525 west of the 4th from agricultural general to Hamlet residential general, as shown in attached Schedule A.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor from Councillor Eichert. Any discussions on the motion? Not, I'll call the question. Is there any opposition? Seeing none, hearing none, that is carried. I'll move that a public hearing for bylaw 2022-18 be scheduled for October 18th, 2022 at 11 a.m. in Wheatland County Council Chambers. I have a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion? Not, I'll call the question. Is there any opposition? Don't hear any, see any. That's carried. We will move on to the agenda item 2.13, bylaw 2022-21 traffic control bylaw. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of council. Chris Perman, Senior Peace Officer representing administration, to present bylaw 2022-21, the traffic control schedule amendment bylaw. On August 16th, council had directed administration to come back with an amendment to the bylaw 2019-20, the traffic control bylaw, to change the schedules to make the hamlet of Carsland a 40-kilometer-an-hour speed limit throughout the hamlet, unlike the way it is now, where there's a combination of a 30-kilometer-an-hour, 40-kilometer-an-hour, and a 50-kilometer-an-hour speed limits within the hamlet. And this bylaw will make that change as directed, and that is all my presentation. I'm open for questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
There's still 30-kilometer zones in playgrounds and school zones.
Through the chair, yes, that will not change.
That's a provincial thing. That's, yeah. Okay.
Any other questions? If not,
I'll move that council grant first reading of bylaw 2022-21 traffic control bylaw schedule amendment bylaw, being a bylaw to amend Schedule A, B, and C of bylaw 2019-20.
thank you, Councillor Bigger. Motion on the floor. Any discussion? Not, I'll call the question. Is there any opposition? Seeing none, hearing none, that is carried.
I'll move that council grant second reading of bylaw 2022-21.
Thank you, Councillor Eichert. There's a motion on the floor. Any questions? If not, I'll call the question. Any opposition? Hear none, see none, that is carried.
I'll move that council provides unanimous consent to grant and proceed to third and final reading of bylaw 2022-21.
Thank you for the motion, Councillor Priest. A motion on the floor. This is a reminder, this is for unanimous consent. If it's not unanimous, it cannot move forward. So if not, I will call the question. Is there any opposition? Don't see any, don't hear any. That is carried.
I'll move that council grant third and final reading of bylaw 2022-21.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Motion on the floor. Any further discussion?
I just want to make sure that we're going to advertise that, because that'll be a couple areas it was going to be kind of.
And through the chair, yes, we'll make sure that it's advertised. It's probably going to take some time for operations to order the signs and get them posted anyway, so we'll start the public relations campaign right away.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion on the floor. I'll call the question. Is there any opposition? Don't see any, don't hear any. That is carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time, Steve.
We'll move on to 2.1.4 bylaw 2022-22 land use bylaw revision. Please proceed.
Morning, Council. Stefan Kuntz again for administration. So this item is essentially to update our land use bylaw to reflect the fact that we're no longer in the Calgary Metropolitan Regional Board. So currently Section 2 of the bylaw contains sections pertaining to that, including the actual appended versions of those plans. As we're no longer in there, Section 63 of the Municipal Government Act allows us to revise the bylaw without doing the hearings and that type of thing. Obviously, because this isn't a material change, it's just a inoperative, obsolete, expired, or otherwise ineffective portion of the bylaw. So that's the purpose for the amendment, and we are of course recommending the resolutions on page 129.
Thank you. Any questions?
I move that council move first reading of bylaw 2022-22 being a bylaw for the purpose of amending the land use bylaw number 2016-01 to remove section 2, Calgary Metropolitan Region Board.
Thank you, Councillor Custer. There's a motion on the floor. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, I'm sorry, I will call the question then. Is there any opposition? See none, hear none. That is carried.
I move that council moves second reading of bylaw 2022-22 being a bylaw of the purpose of amending land use bylaw number 2016-01 to remove section 2, Calgary Metropolitan Regional Board.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor from Councillor Bigger. Any questions? Not, I'll call the question. Is there any opposition? See none, hear none. That is carried.
I'll move that permission be granted to hold third and final reading of bylaw 2022-22.
Thank you. Does this have to be unanimous consent?
Yes, it does. And you should probably just announce after the motion that it is unanimous. Just
oh, okay. Fair enough. Yeah. There's a motion on the floor. Any discussion? If not, I'll call the question. Is there any opposition? That is carried unanimously.
Gives me great honor that council move third reading of bylaw 2022-22 being a bylaw for the purpose of amending the land use bylaw number 2016-01 to remove section 2, the Calgary Metropolitan Region Board.
Thank you, Councillor Eichert. There is a motion on the floor. Any discussion?
Councillor Eichert, try not to show your enthusiasm so much.
I'm grinning from ear to ear myself. There's a motion on the floor. I'll call the question. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, seeing none, that is carried. I'd like to follow up with this to say thank you to all councils from prior, because it hasn't just been this council. I know Councillor Custer has been on boards trying to lobby for this. It's been going on for a decade that I know of, if not more, that we've tried and tried and tried. And I just thank you to all our predecessors that it's all taken steps to get to where we're at. It's definitely opened up the county to have our own direction and control, and I think it's historic. So I say thank you to everybody that was involved in this that's not here anymore. So.
Despite what Premier Kenney said.
Yeah, it wasn't a snap of the fingers. It was all, there was a tremendous, I can remember we even hired a lobbyist. Like no, we didn't. No, Rocky View hired a lobbyist, yes. So there's been a lot of work and a lot of time, effort, and unfortunately money involved in this. So So, but, and to the people that are still in the Calgary Metropolitan Board, I wish you luck. Sympathy. Well, we'll get asked this question how it happened for a long time, I'm sure, but hopefully it stays that way. With that, we'll move on to 2.1.5, bylaw 2022-26. Go ahead.
Hello again, Council. Stephen Kuntz for Administration. Bylaw 2022-26, similar to this other one, or the previous item, is to amend the Municipal Planning Commission and Subdivision Authority bylaw to reflect some essentially just numbering changes within the Municipal Government Act, as well as a title for one of the signing authorities for development officers. Currently, it lists the county's general manager of agriculture, community, and protective services. This no longer exists, though. So we're just proposing to change that to the CAO or their delegate, and then that would be able to be reflected by whatever that title is called. So similar to the other item, this will be revised in accordance with Section 63 of the MGA. And that concludes my presentation. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any questions? No, we have some. Go ahead.
I will move the council move first reading of bylaw 2022-26, being a bylaw for the purpose of revising the Municipal Planning Commission and Subdivision Authority bylaw number 2018-11 in accordance with the Wheatland County Departmental Restructuring and amendments to the Municipal Government Act.
Thank you very much. There's a motion on the floor from Councillor Larson. Is there any discussion? Not, I'll call the question. Is there any opposition? Seeing none, hearing none, that is carried.
I'll move second reading of bylaw 2022-26.
Thank you. Councillor Eichert has a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion? If not, I will call the question. Is there any opposition? I'm hearing any, don't see any. That's carried. I'll move that permission be granted to hold third and final reading of bylaw 2022-26. A reminder, this has to be unanimous or it will fail. I will call the question. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, seeing none, that is carried unanimously.
Okay. I was just going to make sure you said that.
I pick up a little bit.
I'll move that third reading for bylaw 2022-26.
There is a motion on the floor from Councillor Bigger. Is there any further discussion? If not, I'll call the question. Any opposition? Hearing none, seeing none, that is carried. We will move to the 11 o'clock, as we've got some time yet. We can move on to 3.1, the Reeves report. Reeve Link, are you still online?
You bet. Thanks, Deputy Reeve Clausen. Just a couple of things to highlight. Just appreciated the opportunity to participate in the golf tournament. I really enjoyed the opportunity to spend some time with some of our team and sort of in a more informal setting. It was lots of fun. Also, obviously, a highlight of September was the de Havilland announcement. A huge thank you to all of Team Wheatland that made that happen and contributed to the day, and as well to the partnerships that we had with the province of Alberta and with Invest Alberta, and just a thank you to de Havilland for choosing Wheatland County. With that, I will move my report be accepted as presented, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Reeve Link. Is there any questions about the report? One question about de Havilland. A number of us went there. Do we need a motion for
yes,
time and travel?
Council should ratify attendance and mileage for that. And my apologies, we meant to add that to the agenda.
I just realized that when I saw this. Reeve Link, is that something you'd want to do, or do you want someone else to have a motion?
I'm easy, it doesn't matter. I just put no charge on my timesheet, but whatever council's wishes are.
Okay, fair enough. We have a motion to approve the report as presented. Is there any further questions? Not, I'll call the question. Is there any opposition? That's carried. Go ahead.
I'll move that councillors that attended the de Havilland announcement
Receive remuneration.
receive remuneration. Very, thank you.
You're welcome.
Is that good?
And with
And
mileage as well.
And mileage.
Motion on the floor. Is there any discussion? Not, I'll call the question. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, seeing none, that is carried. I'll move on to 3.2, my report. It's on page 179 in the council package. Other than the usual, Lakes and Muirfield had an AGM that I attended and a number of staff did as well. Basically when the public is there, it's generally good to say what the county does and what the HOA is responsible for. How many people were there? Probably 100, 140. They did get a lot more people on their board. I do believe they're still working with staff on possibly the RV storage site. So that was something that came out of there. They had some direction given to recreation and things like that from their well, I guess their HOA members to say what they wanted to see. So there's definitely have some direction. I believe that's the first in-person meeting they've had for 2 years. So seems again, it's a very young community. Lots of double income families, so there's a lot of support. It's nice to see the community supporting itself. Yeah, if not, everything's in the package. If there's any questions, please ask. If not, I'll move my report as presented. I'll call the question. Is there any opposition? Seeing none, hearing none, that is carried. We'll move on to Division 1 Council Report.
All right, my report is on page 180. A couple of things. So for the Strathmore Wheatland Chamber of Commerce, we are working on a small business week event. Be the week of October 16th to the 22nd, and so we're in the final. We'll finalize this probably tomorrow at our board meeting, but it's we're looking at doing a tourism attraction forum. So this is so that businesses can learn a little bit about how they can be attractive to attract tourism into the area. So we're thinking about having an event on October 21st, and it'll be at the Legion in Strathmore from 8 till 9. We're hoping to have a Mayor's Reeve Councillor breakfast, and then they'll have guest speakers, maybe from Calgary Tourism, and maybe from Travel Alberta, to talk about how you can be an attractive business for tourism. And then maybe Community Futures will do a presentation about their digital economy program with a tourism spin to it. And so there will be 40 spots available for businesses to come to attend. 20 of them will be free for chamber members, and the other 20 will be open to anybody interested. So the idea is to make our business community more accessible to tourism. So invitations will come out shortly, but I hope as many of us can come as is available that day. I know it's a little short notice, but so October 21st, maybe do a placeholder. Another event with the SWAT team, Addictions Awareness Week is coming up November 20th to 26th. So we're just planning a small event that was well done last year. I guess it's a community conversation type event to be held at the library. Or, sorry, we don't have the location quite yet, so we'll finalize that. But I might ask councillors to help with distributing posters to advertise the event, and we're wanting to put them into doctors' offices, post offices, hopefully in the hospital to get circulated, and just wherever we can put the poster up to try and get people out to there'll be a presentation for naloxone, I think, and then there's a few people in the community who've had experiences with children overdosing, and so it's kind of sharing experiences and trying to, and then also to bring awareness about what SWAT can do for people in terms of sharing resources and things like that. So it's kind of an awareness event. So I hope I'll probably tap on each of you to help out with communicating that out. I guess I'll just say the Wheatland Housing Management Board, so the building committee met with our consultant, Derek Weiss, on the 15th, and so he's been conducting research to help us narrow down what our rent model should be, what our capital funding resourcing will look like, where the money's going to come from, and options for possibly phasing our build program in order to fund it. So he's now conducting a detailed needs analysis in order to provide more information so that we can make a decision on which, all those questions are still questions to be answered. And so he's helping to give us the information to make those tough decisions. Anyways, that's my report, so I'll move it as presented if anybody has any questions.
Thank you. Is there any questions on the report?
Just one on Wheatland Housing Management. Has there been a number on, has anybody worked up a number of what the projected cost of the building will be?
Well, I think that's in progress.
Progress.
Did you say that? Yeah.
So we have no
I think
idea.
it's coming. It's coming soon.
Okay.
We're getting closer and closer. It is in motion now. I feel like we've been kind of like, this consultant is really starting to ramp things up, and so.
So I think the presentation is October 28th.
I think.
You could be right. Yeah.
It's at the end of October sometime.
Councillor Kester, you had your
I
hand?
think so. Yeah, Tom, when they do a costing of the building, they just go by square foot price, and I think it's up to around $400. Brings it up to about $89 million.
Councillor Larson?
But the same thing to price of lumber went from $500 or less to $1,500 a house, and it stopped back down to $500, and that's prices were driven up by COVID and supply issues. Prices seem to be coming down on some things, so it's just the guesstimate, the best guess.
And I would kind of, what Glenn said is right too. The other thing too with the cost is it's going to depend on how big, when Derek comes back with his needs assessment and stuff, that'll tell us how big it needs to be and whether we need to do a phasing model. So it could be, as Glenn said, 89 million, or it could be, much less if we end up phasing it in over a period of time. And we should have that information. I'm pretty sure he said we should have it before the end of the year, correct?
I believe the next meeting, I think,
Yeah,
is September.
that's what I remember is in October. And then, but so when he gets done, we kind of instructed him to make a presentation so that we can, as board members, we can take that presentation to our, respective councils and areas to, so that everybody has a clear idea of what's going to happen.
And I think we're also looking to our consultant to come and do presentations as well, because he's very knowledgeable in the industry and has built other facilities in other parts of the province. So he has a pretty good resume behind him.
Yeah, and he has the ear of the government too.
Yeah.
Sorry for clarification, would that be presentations to councils?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, did you have a motion on the floor to accept?
I think I did.
Yes, okay, there's a motion on the floor. Any further questions? Not, I will call a question on the motion. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, seeing none, that is carried. We'll move on to Division 3 Council Report.
Yeah, my report's in the package. Shannon's pretty much covered all the WMB board correspondence. So WFCSS, there will be a conference that both Shannon and I will be attending on November 16th to the 18th in Edmonton. Other than that, I do want to say that I couldn't attend the de Havilland announcement, but was very proud of everybody, and very happy that it's coming to Wheatland. I know I was with other ratepayers in my area, and they were very excited too, so I just wanted to let you know that we celebrated all the way to Alaska. So I'll have my, present my report as presented.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, my report is presented.
Questions on the report? If not, I will call the question. Is there any opposition on the motion? Hearing none, seeing none, that is carried. Move on to Division 4, Council report.
My report is on the computer. I think basically everything's been covered. I just want to take this time to thank everybody involved in the de Havilland announcement, the work that's gone into it. And it could be because I've just finished reading a book by J.D. Vance called The Hillbilly Elegy, which talks about the Rust Belt and what happens, and the fact that I am in the right place to see something like this. Like, you read about a small county that has this kind of opportunity presented to itself. You read about it, you never ever get to live that expectation. And we are living this expectation. We've done amazing things with this council. This is what we've done. We've pushed for job attraction with our, business tax incentive and all this, and it's put us on the map. But being able to be present and being in the scene when this happens is phenomenal. And I am just so happy that when the speeches were being done, that I wasn't called up to, because I would have been a blubbering idiot up there. I want to thank ReedLink for representing us so well, so professionally, but this is a one in a lifetime. We will never, I can almost 99.999%, we will never ever have the chance to experience this again. What is happening to this county at this time will be, you can't draw it up and say this is what you do. We are in a confluence of time, and thank everybody that all the work that's gone into it. Thank you. Thank you for past councils. Thank you for present council. I will move my report.
Thank you, Councilor Reichert. I just wanted to clarify, de Havilland announcement was de Havilland's wheelhouse. It wasn't ours at all. We were there as guests, correct? Like there was a little bit of,
that's correct.
Didn't really know what was happening when, but we were all like that. Like it was not, we had very little of an itinerary and stuff too, and no fault. It kind of flowed. So it worked out well. It was a lot of standing on concrete for a long time, but yeah, it was well worth the effort. So, but any questions on the report? Motion on the floor. I will call the question. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, seeing none, that is carried. Move on to Division 6, Council report.
Yeah, my report's on page 188, if there's any questions. If not, I'll move my report.
Thank you. Is there any questions on the report? Not, I'll call the question. Is there any opposition to the motion? Hearing none, seeing none, that is carried. And we have a Division 7 Council report that was added to the package here. But we still have time to look at it, so no problems. Go ahead.
And I see our 11 o'clock's just walking up, but I'm not going to add anything to Wheatland Housing Management 1. We did have, at the last Drumheller and District Solid Waste Management Association, we took all of the board on a tour of the facility, and that was really helpful because now they have a much better understanding of all of the stuff that happens there. It's a pretty happening place, and we're far and away ahead of where we were at this time last year with the Drumheller and District Solid Waste Management Association. So unless there's any other questions, I'll move my report be adopted.
Is there any questions on the report presented? If not, I'll call the question. Is there any opposition to the motion? Hearing none, seeing none, that is carried. We still have about 10 minutes for, got some time. Go ahead, we're on 4.11, CAO report. Go ahead, Mr.
Good morning,
Henderson.
Council. Brian from Administration. On page 189 is the start of my report. Council Resolution Tracker starts on page 191. If there are any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions on the report? No questions. We can't let them get away that easy. There's two possible resolutions here. I'll move that council accept the September 2022 CAO officer report as information. Motion on the floor. Is there any further discussion? If not, I'll call the question. Is there any opposition?
Just a clarification. CAO, then you don't follow it with officer, just so that we've got it clear in the...
Okay.
And we just don't want to have a mistake in the minutes.
That's fine. Wasn't intentional.
I know it wasn't.
Yeah. With that correction, is there any opposition to the motion? Hearing none, seeing none, that is carried. We have one for the resolution tracker if someone wishes to make it.
I'll move that council accept October 4th, 2022 council resolution tracker as information.
There's a motion on the floor from Councillor Bigger. Any discussion? Not, I'll call the question. Is there any opposition? Seeing none, hearing none, that's carried. Move on to 4.1.2, Committee of the Whole scheduling for budget review.
Good morning, Council. So Brian from Administration again. So on page 198 is just a request from Administration to schedule a Committee of the Whole meeting. And we have selected 3 dates to potentially schedule a Committee of the Whole date. The purpose for this Committee of the Whole would be for budget review. On an annual basis, Council is required to adopt both an operating budget and capital budget. In the past, we have found that the capital budget does take some time to go through, so Council understands projects that may be going forward pending Council approval. So we do have 3 select dates, and we're just hoping that we could have it within that window, just so it does not interfere with the RMA convention. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is this something you want us to do right now or get back to you by the end of the meeting?
It's at Council's discretion, whatever you guys would like to do.
Is there a date that is preferable for anybody right now? Go ahead.
I'll suggest that we do November 15th, just because then I don't have to double bill for mileage, because I'm going to be coming already for the MPC.
Yeah.
That would work for me too.
Work for me. Councillor Kester?
Works for me.
Works for me.
We need a motion then?
Yes. So perhaps just to that motion to take place on November 15th, 2022, to commence following the Municipal Planning Commission meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Very much, Councillor Priest. Any discussion? Well, I'll call the question. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, seeing none, that is carried. Sorry, was Reeve Link on the line? Did you have any input?
Nope, that works great. Thanks, Deputy Reeve Lawson.
Thank you. We'll move on to 4.13, Community Town Hall Events.
Yes, good morning, Council. Brian from Administration again. This is just a resolution or an RFD brought forward to Council just as there is some interest. We have heard from 2 councillors at Council meetings that they may be holding community town hall events. All this resolution is just putting forward is that Council is allocating those resources required for councillors for facilitating those community town hall events. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion. I've never actually held one in my division. It's just never worked out. I know I get flack for that, but I do know my predecessors would do it, and they did it on their own. They didn't have any support, so I don't know if that's the norm or not. If you have a town hall event, go ahead.
And I know, I believe my predecessor did it on his own. I'm one of the ones that kind of wanted this, because what I'd like to see us do is do this as a united front and have, as opposed to me standing on a soapbox saying, this is what I think Division 7 needs. This is what the county's doing. This is where, and that's why I think it's important to have administration support and effort so that we're all saying the same message.
And I was thinking, if I was to do one, forgive me, Reeve, but I would ask maybe her to come with me to attend, or maybe somebody else who has a little bit more experience than I do, more knowledge of past things that have gone on and whatever, just to have that support. So I don't know whether administration is needed, or if we just want to collaborate with ourselves, or I don't know. Yeah.
Go ahead, Councillor Kester.
In the past, just about every year, I've had a meeting in my division, and always I have a staff member there. It's usually the CAO comes, and together we listen to the concerns of the community. I usually don't go there and tell them all what the county's doing. It's their time to tell the county what they would like to see. That's how I've been doing it. And we haven't had one, I don't think, since COVID.
So, Councillor Larson, are you looking for maybe a format that we would all use, or some kind of information package that we'd all come out with? Just trying to...
Yeah, and I think that's what we had discussed at the last meeting. Now that we've got the strategic plan, it would be just a short PowerPoint thing of, what the strategic plan is for the county in the next few years, and then have a session for question and answers so that they can, bring their concerns up, that what they do or don't like about that, and other concerns that maybe aren't addressed in that. And I'm totally fine on doing this on my own. I just thought it might be better for all of us to have kind of a songbook to sing from.
We did have the slide deck has been created so that we have that. That part of it is kind of the same. So we would all be doing the same presentation, basically. I don't know. And then the rest of it would be Q&A. Then it's just a matter of, I don't know, yeah.
For me, with the slide deck, I don't have the equipment to set up that kind of stuff. Like, projector and things like that you need.
All gather around your computer.
You could all gather around the computer. Yes, we could definitely do that. But
yeah, I guess.
I mean, to put a more professional thing, I'd have no problem with some staff. I don't necessarily know who it would be, but most of the times it'd probably be public works issues that we hear. But or usually the CAO or the deputy CAO would be there. But what were you looking at?
Just to kind of evaluate and see how it goes.
Yeah.
We don't have anyone specific in mind at this point, but just depending on potential issues that could be different from division to division, maybe bring someone if there's significant recreation issues or significant transportation issues, or if there's a project that's going forward, then I guess it really depends on the audience as well and kind of what's going on in the division. So I guess kind of on an as-need basis.
Fair enough.
So,
I think it's good to have the outreach. Go ahead. Sorry.
If administration was to attend, then they would obviously take some time off in lieu of like an evening session or whatever.
Yeah, typically that's what administration does, is we just kind of alter schedules just to make sure we're not overworking anyone, and just making sure that the hours are consistent with everyone.
Yeah.
Would there need to be any kind of budget considerations for that, or it's something that we can work with?
So we do have a small hall rental budget in our operating budget under administration. It's very minimal. Actually, it's actually rarely used, especially in the last few years. Just no real good opportunities for council to kind of get out there. I know council does want to do that. As for refreshments and stuff like that, we do have some meal budget that we can take a look at as well. We can kind of just use discretion for that one as well. It is kind of important just with engagement to provide refreshments and kind of food for people to come in, and hopefully we get good numbers and don't end up with a lot of leftovers and stuff like that. So yeah, that's all I looked at.
Approximately how much time do you think we would have a session? An hour or two?
Yeah, I would think 2 hours would be maximum. Probably looking to, schedule 2 hours and hope we're done in an hour.
For sure, yeah. Okay.
Because I think the presentation should be really short, just so that they have an idea. Because that's what I've heard from a lot of ratepayers, is that we don't even know what you guys are doing here. So we just give them a high-level overview, then let them ask some questions.
Sounds like a professional approach, which I have no problem with. So. Anything else do we need to set anything for you, for staff to go forward? Something that, will we have some kind of, maybe something we could look at a committee, the whole, a rough idea what we're looking at? I know we already have that slide deck, but that will be what we were using, or?
I believe administration's understanding is that slide deck would be kind of the keystone of all presentations.
Okay.
So it is a uniform document that all council has, and actually all the public would have too, because it's approved in the council minutes, and it was a publicly available document. As for resources, I don't anticipate it would take a long time. I think it's just important that council understands that this resource is available pending council approval.
Perfect. Any further discussions? If there's a recommendation, go ahead.
I'll move that council direct administration to assist councillors with community town hall events up to 2 events per year.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Or there's a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion on the motion? Not, I'll call the question. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, seeing none, that is carried. I see that our 11 o'clock is here. Gentlemen, whoever's presenting would like to come forward. And I'm still going to work on your name here. Staff Sergeant Mark. Staff Sergeant Mark. Welcome to.
I used to get a lot in school. It was Mark and then Mark W. Right.
It's okay.
Thanks again. I'd like to express my gratitude again for coming before you and having the opportunity to discuss our Q1 report and update, which covers the first quarter of this fiscal year. All of my comments were made through the CEO to the chair and the rest of council for the duration of this report. Just to start off, you see that I've got a new face here with us. Outside of Sergeant Sam that's here with me is Constable Ji-Hoon Kim. He's new to us. He came to us in July, coming out of Fort Vermilion. We're just talking, he's acclimatized to the weather down here in the south and the smooth roads.
Smooth roads, yeah.
But I'm trying to make an effort to bring our members along to council so you can meet, especially our new members, but those who are serving our communities, both within Strathmore and our surrounding areas. Starting off with our report, a lot of our initiatives as we arrived on are similar to what we had ongoing from last year. The priorities that we arrived on throughout our detachment area focus on 3 areas. That's reductions of property crimes, traffic safety, and community engagement. So you'll notice some differences in this report as far as some of the visualizations and the numbers that I've been providing, just based on where we see our crime rates moving through. As I presented on before, I did expect to see some return to our normal or historical crime levels within our municipal areas and rural areas. So rather than focusing on some of the downward trends over the last 4 years, which were fantastic, but again there were other contributing causes outside of police work that led to those reductions, i.e. COVID, people being at home, less opportunity for those would-be offenders to commit crimes, people just not generally out and around mingling with each other out in their public lives. So coming back to a bit of a more historical return to normal, it's kind of unreasonable to say that we were going to look for another 5 or 10% reductions. However, what we're trying to do, as you'll see, is I've given you a 4-year average as far as a normal range. Now, I don't believe that any level of crime is acceptable. However, I think in a matter of where are we? Are we within the range of what we've seen over the past 4 years? Obviously, we want to be as low as we can within that range, but as long as we're in the range, I think that we're meeting where we need to be. A couple of things as well, as you'll notice, probably in our local media, as I've been trying to be a little more transparent with what our members have been doing out there, and some of the investigations that have been undertaken. Now, that's not a matter to say that crime is out of control or it's happening more frequently. These things were happening before, and I think it's more on a level of transparency that the public knows what we're getting into. And in particular, that when crime does occur, that our detachment's well placed to address it, as noted by a number of different arrests and numerous charges laid against several area habitual offenders that have been circulating through our area. So to get into our first area priority, which is again is a reduction of property crimes, that being theft from vehicles, theft from motor vehicles, and break-and-enters. We have a number of different issues underway. Most notably, we have our habitual offender and problematic property management program. In Q1, we had 13 offenders. I'll strike that 11 offenders and 2 properties that we were keeping an eye on, and conducted a total of over 94 checks on all those areas. And as you see through there, a number of arrests were made. Some of them don't live here anymore. and a few of them ended their required conditions. Either way, I do view that as positive. We have a Persons of Interest program, which is being investigation section. Our Strathmore General Investigation section, coupled with the 2 municipally funded members plus a rural member that moved into that position, as into that unit as an enhanced resource. So they'll be working throughout all of our rural areas, not just within the town, but throughout all our rural areas as well. Looking at this as more of an area and geographical approach to dealing with threats and issues and emerging crime trends that affect all of us. For instance, a person may live in Strathmore but is active in Wheatland County. Someone who lives in Rockview County might be active in Strathmore and the like. So it was more of a strategic move with the use of our resources to ensure we're dealing with area issues and not working essentially as a siloed department. Our security screw program is active. It's still available. You can still pick up these fasteners at all the dealerships in Strathmore, as well as the detachment, the fire hall, and now in Langdon. We're moving forward with our crime prevention through environmental design program. Of course, all of our members are attending scenes. We provide advice and guidance with how to prevent, or how people can reduce the likelihood of either becoming a victim of crime, or if there's any improvements we can suggest to their properties. And again, whether it be new developments or existing clients, our peace officers have been very helpful in that regard. I've given you the breakdown as far as where we're looking at. Actually, before I get there, you've got some information in front of you as far as some hotspot patrols. We do frequent different areas, and some of these areas might have slightly higher numbers than you'd typically notice, but some of those patrols come in response to some of our habitual offender management checks. I've given you some graphics here, and just as described before, you'll notice the differences between Wheatland County and Rockview County, given both of those visualizations to add to the rural policing report. But as you can note, there's been some fluctuation. Overall, we're in great shape. As far as Wheatland County is concerned, we're still remaining within the range. With respect to traffic safety, again, we're continuing with our existing programs, our regular traffic safety enforcement, our check stop program. During Q1, we did 11 documented check stops for a total of 760 vehicles that were checked. And I can say that during that, we had a number of suspensions and that were issued. But again, what we're seeing as far as total impaired driving charges, I think the visibility is having an effect. I think the message is getting out, particularly within our municipal areas and around our licensed establishments, that our members are out. And part of the reason why they're out is, or not that they're out, but they're available, more available and more visible in our communities is coming from the support from our Watch Clerk program. So that program has been very helpful as far as keeping our members available on the road and able to detect more aggressive drivers, whether it be impaired driving, distracted driving, or just general aggressive driving patterns. We do conduct bar walks throughout the area. We did a number of them within the Wheatland County area, but I've broken those down for you in that program. And again, it's just to encourage people to make safe decisions and choices about how they get home. Our Enhanced Road Safety Initiative, we're piloting this in Strathmore, but I am looking to expand that to our rural areas to enhance our visibility with law enforcement, again, to prevent, detect, and deter crime. Road safety is a priority, but what I'm looking at is to have that secondary effect with more flashing red and blues out in the area, more visible presence of law enforcement. It doesn't matter what stickers on the door, whether it be our peace officers, sheriffs, or RCMP. That's one of the strategies that I'm exploring. I've given you some collision breakdown data. As far as Wheatland County is concerned, we're unchanged with reportable collisions this year compared to last year in the same time frame. If we look at our 4-year average, we're down by 20%. However, we've seen some slight increase with our injury collisions. And again, that's mainly animal strikes that we're seeing. We're not seeing really any criminal driving or behaviors that have resulted in criminal crashes. It's certainly not for Q1. Our community engagement remains a priority for us with respect to our rural areas as well as our municipal areas. I've given you some notable involvements that our members have had within our rural areas. We also have a focus on our Indigenous community engagement as a result of a letter of understanding we have with Siksika Nation, the town of Strathmore, and the RCMP. But overall, we try to reach out to all cross sections of our area and our society. And again, to work in the spirit of reconciliation, but again, strengthening trust and relationships within our Indigenous communities as well. Our community liaison program remains active. Our members are reaching out to their respective groups. And again, that's a matter of consultation with our community groups, being available, being that direct access and resource to our community groups, but again, being available and normalizing our presence within our community. We need our community members to work with us in an effort to not only solve crime, but also to be good citizens, good participants, good witnesses, and again, helping us along with the criminal process. We still have our youth, Strathmore Youth Indigenous and Youth Diversion Program. That is active at this point in time. We haven't had a candidate enter it yet. Generally speaking, we don't really have candidates or a lot of youth crime that would have someone falling into this program, but it is an option that we have available. And it still remains available to find the best possible outcome to situations involving first-time offenses for youth, and again, to find a more longer lasting solution. Our business outreach program is under development, but we will see some movement on that. We do have a Rocky County Enhanced Position whose mandate has recently been changed from more of a road safety enforcement to a crime reduction type of enforcement position. So their main strategy is going to be dealing with some of the commercial and business break and enter crimes that we see most of our rural numbers coming from in Wrangler Park. That position will be dedicated towards dealing with that area, as well as some of our problematic properties within the county, Rockview County, but focused mainly on crime reduction initiatives, working closely with our general investigation section. So that effectively brings our plainclothes specialized component from where it was sitting before at 2. Now we have 4 that are dedicated working within our areas. So that is a positive improvement with some internal changes we made at our detachment. Lastly, as I speak about our Watch Clerk program, at this point in time, we're working with administration to further the program and continue it on a multi-year type of deal with our municipal funding partners. I do believe it is a valuable investment in our global community safety efforts. It has been providing us a lot of support. Just speaking recently about a matter that we had just yesterday. A stolen vehicle was being followed out of Calgary. We had Hawks involved. We utilized OnStar to disable the vehicle, but part of that was our watch clerks working in the background on the phone with OnStar to facilitate that communication so our members could engage that vehicle once it was stopped and arrest the individual in the vehicle. That arrest took place, and Ji-Hoon was part of that arrest that took place in Wheatland County. The individual was less than forthcoming with his true identity, but we've got this fancy thing called technology. We can roll your fingerprints and we can find out who you are. And as it turns out, several conditions, several warrants wanted on a number of different items out of Calgary. And that's the trend that we're seeing is people are committing the majority of our property crimes don't live in our area. They're roving throughout the Calgary urban area, and a lot of them reside within Calgary. That's why we maintain strong working relationships with the City of Calgary, but we also rely on our Southern Alberta District Crime Reduction Team and our criminal analysts that have been putting together some of this information. To speak of a matter on Friday at a property near Carsland, and I'll be putting out a media release on this probably today or tomorrow, a property where just a simple condition check turned into the recovery of 2 high-value travel trailers as well as a number of stolen vehicles and other property. Our members were assisted throughout the search warrant by our Southern Alberta District Crime Reduction Unit, but also the criminal analysts. So, as an example, we had one piece of oil field equipment that was found on the property. There's no serial numbers that people typically write down that report to us that it's been stolen, but our criminal analyst was able to identify that there's only 2 in existence in Alberta, and one of them was reported stolen. So we were able to make a connection that way, just over the phone while they were supporting us remotely. So that was very helpful, and we do anticipate a number of charges. In fact, 3 of the offenders arrested out of there aren't residents of our area, and they had, upon discovery, double-digit numbers of warrants in some cases, as well as numerous other charges and conditions. So we are dealing with repeat offenders that aren't from our area, but again, an emphasis on the fact that we are truly working with intelligence-led policing to identify who these people are, but also to try as best as we can to hold them accountable. I've given you a breakdown of where our call volumes are, and we're typically within our historical call volumes that I see as far as our incoming workloads. But I guess really to put a focus on what we're working on this year is again to build on top of our existing programs, to keep working on building on the successes that we're seeing, to add layers with respect to our strategies are concerned and how we bring these online, but also a real focus on transparency and again, being open with the public to let them know what their police service is doing. And again, that's why you'll be seeing a lot more stuff in the media. Just let the public know that your policemen are out there and they're working for you. While we're here, again, I'd like to also point out another media story that I put out a few weeks back with respect to a seizure of nearly 50 firearms after a road rage incident. I'm not sure if any in the room may be familiar with it, but Constable Kim was the one who was the investigator on that file. I responded to the incident itself. You did the necessary work that was required. So again, he went above and beyond to dig a little bit deeper into the situation and found out that there was a number of other firearms that were in this person's possession. And again, it's a dangerous situation where you have a person during a road rage incident that's in possession of a prohibited weapon and using it in a careless manner. Now, I was clear with the media that this isn't representative of responsible gun ownership. This person, certainly was acting in a dangerous manner, and certainly things could have gone awry had that encounter become a little bit more confrontational. Regardless, Constable Kim put in the work, identified that there was more firearms at the residence, conducted a search warrant at the residence in Calgary with the support of Calgary Police, and total number of firearms seized were about 49. Many of them were unregistered, many of them prohibited weapons, many of them restricted weapons that were unregistered as well. And that was just as a matter of taking the best efforts and to maintain public safety until the matter could be resolved by the courts. But again, that's just one example of what our members are out there doing. And again, I just felt it appropriate to take the 30 seconds to recognize Constable Kim for his efforts in that regard for helping you keep Albertans safe. With that, that's essentially our quarter one report. Quarter two ended on Friday, so you'll be seeing me here fairly quickly again for the quarter two report. And of course, I'm open to any questions that council or administration may have.
Thank you for your presentation. Any questions? Go ahead.
This will have a bit of a comment, but so you are aware that I've learned a new word, and it's called hubbing, and I believe the RCMP are going to be doing this hubbing operation in Bassano, and it's going to be covered by the Brooks Police. Now, see, it's such a great word because hubbing sounds so much better than abandoning. The people in Bassano, I feel sorry for them. And so my question is, because of the distances, I just picked Hazard out of the book, but the distance from Strathmore to Hazard is 52 kilometers. The distance from Brooks to Hazard is 92 kilometers. So in this whole operation, this whole hubbing operation thing, has there been thought given that the other detachments, either Strathmore or Gleason, or perhaps both of them, give more coverage to the east side of our county? Because we are it is now, it's 92 kilometers to go from Brooks to Hazard, and as good as intentions are, this is going to make it tougher for getting policing in that area. So when they have this discussion about hubbing, are you guys included in that discussion, that you guys will be sending out patrols out into that area? Because I'm really concerned about the amount of police presence that is going to be in the area, and we have very little. We have very little say on what we're going to do. I'll be after this. I will be putting a motion forward that at the RMA that we talk to Division K representatives and to address this problem. But I'm just, I just wanted your feel on what will you be doing going beyond, or will this stretch you so much that you cannot do this?
I guess on that matter, to answer part of your question, Strathmore Detachment or myself wasn't involved in the discussions with the hubbing issues between Bassano and Brooks. As far as setting our resources over to cover Hazard, if it's a priority one call and that there's life and limb at risk, our OCC will find the closest car, regardless of where the members are at, and they'll go. We do provide as effective a coverage as we can. So even though it's not within Strathmore Detachment's area, if we have a car, let's just say in the eastern part of our detachment area that's closest to Hussar, for example, and there's a priority 1 or priority 2 call, particularly if it's in progress, they're going to go. And that's just our standard operating procedures. As far as the hubbing project itself, we can arrange to have our Southern Alberta District Management Team or a representative come to council or an information session to answer some of these questions and address some of your concerns. The RMA is a place that you can certainly bring that forward, but in anticipation of, I can always facilitate a meeting with our management team to come and speak with council if there's a desire for further information. But more so, my understanding with the hubbing between Bassano and Brooks is that Bassano is a smaller member detachment. I think there's only 4 members there, to my understanding. So if we have a situation where, say, a member is off on medical leave and we have a new recruit that comes in or a new member that requires training, they're not going to get the training that they need in Bassano, which is why they would be trained in Brooks for their first 6 months and then come back out to Bassano. That leaves a standalone detachment in a very difficult position as far as maintaining 24-hour coverage, regardless of how much that is on call time. So with amalgamating some resources, and I don't want to provide inaccurate information, but it was my understanding that this was a temporary measure until such a time that Bassano could be fully resourced. That being with a commander and a full complement of members. But it's providing that extra level of support from the Brooks detachment. The full details of which I think is probably best and most appropriate of how that would roll out to have the commander in Brooks, as well as or a member of our Southern Alberta District Management Team come and provide that information to you.
I think that would be good to have some, because we get questions from ratepayers. I've had people from Hussar that I know I've talked to them and they're concerned about it. Yeah. So definitely.
And that's another reason behind, I try to enhance our reporting just to make sure that our elected officials and administration with municipalities are fully aware of what we're doing, because it makes it easier to answer those questions. When people have concerns about certain issues, I believe that the more informed our elected officials and our senior leadership teams at municipalities are informed, it makes it much easier to address public concerns before it gets to the point where someone's really upset about something and it could have been as easy as, well, in actual fact, this is what the police are doing. So.
Thanks. Reeve Link has a comment.
I just wanted to thank you, Staff Sergeant Wilgosh, for your report today and for the policing as well as the communication work that you've been doing. I know I have heard some commendations from ratepayers in the area, and I appreciate the increased presence as well as the reporting to the public. So thank you, and it's also very helpful to hear about the intelligence-led policing. I do continue to encourage ratepayers to report all suspicious activity or all crime, even if it's sort of past crime and there might be a low probability of, successfully catching the perpetrator. And as well, just appreciate the first-hand accounts of how the Watch program impacts your coverage for the area. Thank you, and thank you to your team.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Go ahead.
I'd like to thank you too again for a bunch of things. First off, the license plate thing, I took advantage of that. That was a good thing. And I understand where Councillor Eichert's coming from. I've been involved with the Bassano detachment since Leon Rumpf was in charge there, which is probably a guy older than you are. But what we have seen, though, and this is what I just want to say, I know that the hubbing is an issue, but I have seen more, and this probably will really date me too, I've seen more Buffalo cabs now than I'm normally used to seeing, so I think the presence is out there. You know what a Buffalo cab is. Maybe it is. When you get older, you forget these things. So thanks, anyway.
Thank you. Comments are appreciated. I'll pass those on to our members.
Any other questions? I have a couple here, actually. I saw recently that one county, I think it was Strathcona County, passed a bylaw about catalytic converters. I just wonder, basically, I think it said that in order for a recycler to take them, they had to have a VIN number attached to it, if I'm correct. I just wonder, is that something that is helpful? Because we're as councillors, if we can, and I don't know, maybe staff will look into this or something, but, I look at the copper theft and I look at these things that are repeat offenders. It's a cash grab because they go to a recycler and they get cash in their hand. Is there something that we can do to help that? Does that stuff help, or is it a hindrance? I don't know. So.
I think councils are very well placed to provide the tools for our frontline operations to do their job. I've read about what they're doing in Leduc. I wasn't aware of Strathcona County, but
maybe it was Leduc. Sorry,
the city of Leduc has a bylaw in place. Under the Metal Recyclers Act, it's not just simply just a VIN number. I think Airdrie is working with their body shops to, at people's request, to etch a VIN number in their catalytic converters if they're in there for service. That's one thing I was considering perhaps bringing into Strathmore for those who are willing to participate. But secondly, when someone brings in a catalytic converter or any metals for that matter, it's supposed to act like a pawn shop. They're supposed to collect ID. They're supposed to collect VIN numbers if they're available, but also the weights and quantities and types of metals that are brought in. Now, that can be difficult to say which catalytic converter goes with what vehicle because there are no distinctive markings on them. With this bylaw, as far as I understand it, is that it makes it unlawful to possess a catalytic converter in the form of a $1,000 fine for those who either don't have a permit that's been provided by either municipal enforcement or the police. And in order to get a permit, that the person has to verify where the vehicle is that the catalytic converter came from, and the VIN number of that vehicle itself, and ensure that's not stolen, and possibly even check the vehicle to make sure that that catalytic converter came out of the vehicle before you even issued a permit. That excludes those who are licensed auto body shops and people who work in the trade, or I guess auto part delivery persons that have business licenses. But that is something that is helpful. If we were to stop somebody with and we put them on arrest, and in their duffel bag they've got a catalytic converter, well, unless we're able to go to, or if someone reports it, but if we're able to go wherever they were, and again, that person could have been active in Brooks, for example, and we catch them here, and we don't know locally where that vehicle might have been, to bring that catalytic converter back to, and to see if it matches. So the instant fine, if they can't explain it, they can seize that catalytic converter, and the instant fine of $1,000, again, if the people have a chance to pay it. But that's another tool at our disposal that we can lay those charges. Although I would suggest that there should be consideration into the prosecution of a bylaw infraction that is a responsibility of the municipality itself. So I guess to put a short answer to it, any tool that could help us that can help get forward is helpful. It may not be the solution that we opt to proceed with in any individual case, but that's an option, and I think it does send a message as far as where council sits. So,
thanks. The other one, there's an announcement about Siksika having their own police force in the future. Is there any? I guess this could be if we have a meeting with, like you said, with the higher ups, seeing how that plays out. If we're going to have less members in Gleason, RCMP members, or how it's going to move forward. So we have it, because we'll get asked the questions, so we might as well try to get those answers.
My understanding is that the federal government has given approval to move forward with a CTA, or Community Tripartite Agreement, with Siksika. It's going to take some time in order to make that conversion. I've seen it happen in other areas where Indigenous communities want to have their own policing service. In fact, North Peace Tribal Police, where Constable Kim came from, it was before his time, but it's a bit of an implementation process. It doesn't happen overnight. There's a lot of different barriers and pressures that need to be addressed before a police service can become its own standalone police service. If you're to look at Surrey, for example, I believe it was supposed to be a 2-year conversion, and I believe we're almost 4 years into it. So what would eventually happen is, if a large area of Gleason's area is taken over by Siksika Police upon full implementation, then there will be fewer members, I anticipate, in Gleason. However, their detachment area is going to be smaller because there's another police service looking after a portion of that area. How many resources are left there is something has yet to remain to be seen, depending on what are the calls for service, what are the pressures that are faced in that area, and how many are reasonably required to provide service in that area. Again, active participation and engagement, I believe, from council is important with our management in the south, but also with municipal officials or provincial officials to ensure we have adequate policing. It's not going to be an overnight thing. And even if you look at the Alberta Provincial Policing Report, if they were to start today, they're anticipating generously at a 6-year implementation. So it's not something that's going to happen overnight.
Thanks. I believe, if I recall correctly, they did have tribal police about 15 years ago. Ran for a number of years, and for whatever reason, it shut down. So. Great. Any other questions? Not, we need a motion.
I'll move that council accept the Strathmore RCMP Quarter 1 update dated October 4, 2022 as information.
A motion on the floor. Any questions? If not, I'll call. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, seeing none, that is carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen, for your service.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
And just as a side note, if you're having trouble getting rid of some refreshments, if you bring them over to the office, we can certainly just trying to help.
Alrighty, let's move to 4.2.1.
Can I, following up on this,
sorry,
on
yes.
this, presentation, I would actually like to make a motion to ask administration to set up a meeting with K Division at RMA and have the hubbing and the other issues that were brought up and the coverage on how that's going to affect the county and that kind of stuff discussed.
Or what about asking a Southern Alberta District Commander to come out and present to us here?
I still want to get this.
You want to do it at RMA?
I want to get this on
More. Yeah, okay.
on Division K's
Radar.
radar. That's, thank you.
Thank you.
K Division, not Division K.
K.
Okay.
Potato, potato.
Is there still appropriate time to get that? Has that closed?
I'm not sure, but we can definitely try.
Okay. So you understand that it may not be successful?
Yeah, no, it's just that.
Would you like a friendly amendment to add what Councillor Priest had talked about and what was presented today as well with that motion?
I'll accept the friendly amendment.
Okay. Because I think that's important to get those people here that make the decisions and have a, yeah. So. All right. So do we need any wording for that, or?
I think it's clear.
Okay, fair enough.
As long as council thinks it's clear as well. So Southern Director and Division K.
Any further discussion before I call a question?
Should we set a date for getting that? Say maybe the next council meeting is probably too early to get the division commander, but could we get them? I'm just wondering, can we get them before RMA? We should have probably asked that question while Mark was here. But
we can attempt to. I think it just depends on their availability. We'll see. We'll see what we can do.
Okay.
Fair enough. I would say by the end of the year, myself. But trying to get everybody into one spot.
Going on.
Yeah, for sure.
Just would be good to get an update. That's all.
All right, there's a motion on the floor. Any opposition? Call the question. Any opposition? Hearing none, seeing none, that's carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to 4.2.1, Corporate and Financial Services Report. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning. Corey Adamson, Manager of Information Services. Just here to give the Corporate and Financial Services Report. So just a couple of highlights. This is on page 204 of the council package. Actually something that's a little bit ahead of the report is the assessors. Just for council's knowledge, the assessors are beginning their regular assessments really quickly. So they'll be out and about in the county just in case you get any questions. We're also looking at the posting soon, once we get them, the budget metrics for the engagement survey. So that'll be, once that's completed, that'll be posted to the website. We're also deep in analyzing the budget. So of course that's going to be coming to council, as we heard earlier from Brian. And so, yeah, we're deep in review on that, and that's what finance is working on. And the project for our broadband is underway. We've had meetings with Shaw, and pleased to report they've already completed their first milestone. So that's great, and that concludes my report. I'm here for any questions you might have.
Thank you. Any questions? I had one and it's eluded me. I'll catch you another time. Wait. Looking for a motion?
I'll move that council accept the September 2022 Corporate and Financial Services Report as information.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Any discussion? If not, I'll call the question. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, seeing none, that is carried. Move on to 4.2.2, Information Management Policy Edition.
Good morning again, Council. And this is Corey from Administration. So on page 208 of the Council package is the information regarding Information Management Policy Edition. So we're looking to request that Council accepts the addition of the proposed Information Management Policy, which will be Section 4.4 to the Information Security and Technology Policies. The purpose of this policy is really as a guideline or foundation of our digital transformation project, and that really gives us clear policies and standards for moving from hard copy to the digital world. And of course, some scanned images. Of course, we have old scanned documents that need to be entered in and recognized as official business records being digital. So this gives guidelines, and it also directs staff around the creation, management, and destruction of information assets. And that will be regardless if it's medium, whether it's paper or digital. It also helps give guidelines around the accountability at all levels of the organization for the creation and destruction of these documents. And also, it points to standards and legislation internally that help support and align with industry standards while ensuring Wheatland County is continuing to protect its information. So these standards will help us comply with things like the Alberta Evidence Act, FOIP, the MGA, as well as the Electronic Records and Documentary Evidence Standard. And that concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Any questions? No questions. We have a direction, motion. Go ahead.
I'll move that council accepts the addition of the proposed Information Management Policy, Section 4.4, to the Information Security and Technology Policies.
Thank you very much. There's a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Last chance for question. If not, I will call the question on the motion. Is there any opposition? Seeing none, hearing none, that is carried. We will move on to 4.3.1, Community and Development Services Report.
Good morning, Council. Matt from Administration here to present the September 22 update for the Community and Development Services report. Pardon me while I just get there. Found on page 214 of your agenda package. Just going through some high-level salient points of the department and the various business units. You'll find on page 214 and 215 the economic development updates, just on behalf of administration, thanking all the business units for their work on many of the announcements and investment attraction and business development that we're experiencing in the county. You'll note some pictures from the celebration on page 215. On page 216 and 217, you'll note in particular, obviously, some planning and development permit actuals year-to-dates. We're trending upward for development permits, which is always a good sign moving forward. And of course, our safety codes permits, you'll see the various breakdowns there. Year-to-date, we're trending upward probably to surpass 2021, which is quite exciting as well. With respect to protective services of note, and in the spirit of today, with the speed limits in our hamlets, you'll note 38 violation tickets were issued to individuals traveling at or above 30 kilometers an hour in zones. So that is noteworthy. Obviously, we are making track of that, and with any outliers, we'll make note to council. But otherwise, that concludes my presentation. I'm here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for staff?
So I had a question just regarding Clooney tree planting. I think I saw that on your report. I must see here. Is that scheduled for the spring? It said next quarter. I've been trying to find it. I thought I saw it under this.
On page 214 under Community Services.
Yep.
Yeah, next quarter plans is the completion of the tree planting in Cluny. I'm not entirely sure I can find a more particular when that's forecasted to be completed, but certainly when we make note of next quarter plans for that completion, we're anticipating that it gets completed prior to the freeze, but...
Any other questions? I just have one about Eagle Lake RV Resort. I noticed online there's been a number of things for sale, so I just want to make sure that it's not stuff that we had.
To council.
It's going okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
To council, through you, Mr. Chair, we are working with the previous leasee on ensuring that a couple of leftover items are addressed and taken care of. Our staff through multiple business units are addressing that. Obviously, they did do a couple of previous site inspections within the last 48 hours, actually. And the report back is that the site is actually in a great state. They're dealing with one more item, I believe it's a mobile home. As to whether that is removed or not, the previous leasee is actually, they're ensuring that there is a contractor to remove it. I know that our staff are working with that previous leasee to either ensure that it is removed, or if it's not removed, we'll be addressing it at a later date and we can report that back to council.
Great. Thank you. Go ahead.
I move that the council accepts the September 2022 Community and Development Service report as information.
Thank you for the motion. Councillor Kester has the motion on the floor. Any further discussion?
Just administration again. Is there going to be a public consultation on what we're going to do with the Eagle Lake RV?
So through the chair to Councillor Eichert, obviously we have a few more steps to go with respect to that. And then, of course, we will bring back an item to council. I do believe it's at committee of the whole. I think it is, yeah. Yeah, my apologies. And of course, at committee of the whole, the committee discusses and administration listens to feedback with respect to the wishes of committee, which direction we go in. And contingent on that outcome, we'll bring back some options. Of course, we did present some outfalls and options to council previously, but of course, we need some further discussion and clarity on that from committee in order to then move forward with some next steps.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. I'll call the question. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, seeing none, that is carried. Move on to 4.401, Transportation and Agriculture Report. Go ahead, sir.
Good morning, Council. Brad Bullock presenting the September Transportation and Agricultural General Manager Report. So you'll find, as typical, some detailed tables at the end of the report, and then up front some points here for some of the more salient projects that are going on that may be of interest, particular interest to council. So under the capital projects, under page 223, the Range Road 205 reconstruction is still underway, anticipated for completion about mid-August here. I believe we're still on track for that. Preparation is underway for 3 bridge file replacements to happen this winter. The base repair and double seal coating of Township 262 from Highway 21 to Range Road 245 is underway, anticipated for completion also mid-October. And the annual sidewalk and concrete work that took place in Carsland this year has been completed. Under operations, under roads on page 224, the line painting of selected paved and seal coated roads has been completed. The oil dust and calcium applications have also been completed for the season. In utilities, we have installed new digital weighing scales for improving the accuracy of readings for chemical consumption in the Speargrass water treatment plant. And the operations and planning for the discharge of the Carsland Lagoon has started, with notifications being sent out to neighboring municipalities and downstream landowners. The facilities team has been working with the general contractors and such just to wrap up some final deficiencies at the Carsland Fire Hall, with the holdback for that pending release once those deficiencies can be rectified. New fire extinguishers to be installed at all used oil tanks at all waste transfer sites as per code requirements. In the hamlets, the regular mowing is ongoing, but close to wrapping up for the season. And as part of the decommissioning of the Rosebud septic field, the field demolition of the surface works, including the manhole and vault, have been completed by our public works staff. Moving on to page 225 under land. So again, a summary of the sales in Murfield. So actually most are pending close. There were 4 lots that came back up for sale recently. And so there's 16 lots pending close, and then 4 lots currently unsold, at least at the time that the report was put together. Administration has received some correspondence from the Lakes of Murfield HOA regarding the lease of the RV storage lot site. So those conversations are still ongoing. That lot, all the existing leases have been terminated as of September 30th, and that lot is no longer serving as a RV storage site. But there are some ongoing conversations with the HOA there. Under agriculture and environment, there's a number of bursaries listed there that have gone on, and some of the programs listed there for council's information. The mowing of the roads and our county roads is underway. Staff is piloting kind of a bit of a pilot project using our 15-foot mowers, as well as the other smaller mowers that we've been using, just to kind of see which ones work better in which situations. So that's underway. Our ASB team is looking at that and reviewing that with our public works team, and looking at the mowing program to see what efficiencies might be able to find with using the different types of mowers in different locations. Club route surveys are underway throughout the county, and a couple points that council is already aware of, but George Bloom was appointed by council as agricultural fieldman under the ASB Act on September 20th, 2022. As well, Albert Anderson was hired as agricultural services officer, and council approved the associated required regulatory appointments for that position also during the September 20th council meeting. And that concludes my report. I'm here for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Go ahead.
I know it's not really in our wheelhouse, but it kind of is. Do you have any information on the Bridge 11 that Drumheller is apparently postponed now?
We have received some information on that. The correspondence from Drumheller was that the tenders that came in well above what was estimated, and so council has canceled those tenders and canceled the project. As far as what they're doing with that now, I do understand they're kind of re-looking at it to see what they want to do now, but we don't have any definitive information on what their path forward is at this point. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thinking about this would be a good time. We haven't had supper with Drumheller councilman. Now would be a good time to probably push that forward. Possibly Hazard too at the same time, or in that same neck of the woods, because there's some issues out there.
That.
Yeah. I think that would be. Do you need a motion for that, or something just directive? Because it's already a motion to have all that stuff. So.
Yeah, administration just can move forward with that.
Yeah.
We're just trying to space them out a little bit, but yeah, we can focus.
It'd be a great time to sit down with Drumheller and see what their moving forward is, for sure. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, because that bridge is in their county, but it affects a significant amount of people in Medina County.
I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment. I mentioned earlier that I had a HOA meeting in Muirfield, and I just wanted to thank the Public Works staff, the utility staff, Hamlet crews. The guys, the residents there notice a dramatic change in that community, and they really appreciate it, and they wanted to make sure I express that back to your guys, and that includes everybody, from general labor to managers. Thank you very much. So it's noted. It's as an area councilor, it's a little easier now to talk to people, and when I knocked on doors many years ago, it's like, I can't do anything for you. Please vote for me. And now I can say I can actually affect change, so thank you very much. And thank council too for that as well. Go ahead.
I actually forgot one thing too. I want to thank Russ and George and Sarah and everybody else that planned that ALIS Pack tour that we hosted. That was so amazing, especially the lunch at Collins's place. That was quite a surprise to me. That was so. Thank you very much for that.
We need a motion to accept this information. Anybody make that yet?
I'll move that council accepts the General Manager of Transportation and Agriculture report dated September 2022. That's so hard.
As information.
As information, sorry. Yep.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Any discussion? If not, I'll call the question. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, seeing none, that is carried. Thanks again. I believe we have one more item to go, and it's going to be lunchtime.
I was just going to say, I saw the lunch truck come in.
I think there's only one.
Do we want to just wrap it up and then have lunch, or?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think there's much.
It's sandwiches, so it's not going to get cold.
Yeah. So there's one page 241 of our package for Starland County. Is there anything that we need to do for this?
No, there's no action required.
Okay. There might be some lobbying coming through RMA or something maybe in the future.
There may be, and I think we'd have to just wait for the provincial conference for that to see if council has an opportunity to vote on something like that.
Okay. Motion on the...
And I'll move that council accept the following items as information as provided in the request for decision, the Starland County correspondence dated August 31st, 2022, regarding a letter of request for broadband funding envelope.
Perfect. Motion on the floor. Any discussion? If not, I'll call the question. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, seeing that is carried. Is there anything else? Not, I will terminate this meeting.
I'm not sure that's the right term, but hey, it works.
I think it's going to work.
Yep.